Greetings, all. It's Max, and we're back. And it turns out I think I'm right about the old Witsit and having the old Freemason thing going on. And something fishy about the whole deal, especially with the Nathan Thompson and all that. Very, very, very strange. Now, I've been watched Witsit's last couple of videos because he came through Minnesota in my neck of the woods. That was kind of cool. And then he went to Mount Rushmore, where he had some problems with the park police there, and some things were caught on some live streams. Apparently, during that live stream, the police asked his traveling partner how long he's worked for the government. And in this stream, this is live right now. You can see the chat kind of scrolling on the side, so he's still talking. But the first 15 minutes of the stream is him trying to explain this away. And it doesn't make any sense, right? These are a couple of guys getting financed by who? For what? In a bus? For months now. Like 3 months. Going across the country. Okay, well, let's let him talk about it.
So yeah, tonight's stream is called Fear Porn, and I think it's the topic that needs to be covered and discussed pretty desperately, honestly. So just so you guys know, some people may get triggered, but as you guys know, with all my streams, people typically get triggered. It's not really like a revelation, so there's the disclaimer, bro. No one cares. No one cares, bro. I love you guys. So there you go. Beard looks good. Awesome. Thank you, bro. All right. So I'll address a few things prior to getting into the stream. Yeah. So if you guys didn't know or whatever, the last stream I did was out at Mount Rushmore. And yeah, so I pulled out the like little Bill Nye costume. I had my bow tie and my lab coat and my glasses, and started doing some activism. Some pentagram wearers converged on us before we even started. I have that documented on the GoPro. That wasn't on the live stream. Effectively, they say you can't have a sign, you can't use that amplifier, and unless you're in the free speech zone, and you can only use those things in the free speech zone if you got a permit. And I'm like, well, you know, the First Amendment doesn't say anything about a free speech zone. I'm like, wait, so is it Nazi Germany over there? And I'll upload the video. I don't think I say anything about genetic modification or anything, so we should be good. And I'm like, so do you know can you cite the ordinance? So just so for the context of the people, a lot of people don't know this, right? I'm like, can you cite the ordinance? And he's immediately just being a douchebag. Okay, the dude was a gamma male, right? So I'm like, can you cite the ordinance so I can look at it? And he's like, he calls his buddy over there. He's like, hey, you got your ticket book? This guy wants to be cited. I'm like, what? No. I want you to cite the ordinance, bro. I want you to cite the ordinance that I need to comply to. You know what I'm saying? So he's automatically, just from the jump, being ridiculous. Have it on tape. And I'm like, so am I being detained? He said no. So I'm like, all right, well, we're free to go then. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to start doing my activism. If you find the ordinance and you want to tell me about it and what it says, we'll talk about that. He's like talking about how he can get me down in the auditorium in the bottom. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to talk where everyone is as well, as is my right. I don't care to move down to the auditorium after that. So if you work that out, or you bring me the ordinance, whatever, we'll figure it out from there. But we're gonna go over here. So then we go over there and we start. Okay, and then you guys saw what happened after that. Whatever, we get arrested. I took like a week off during that stream, as I get federally arrested and released under what their words are. Of course, I wasn't booked in or anything, so technically as an arrest, I don't know, nor do I care, to be honest. But so I'm sitting in the cop car, and as a lot of attentive people have pointed out, it seemed as if that the cop was talking to someone that was on the live stream, because they knew they couldn't stop my live stream. So it's like the cop was talking to someone that was actually on the live stream, and he was guiding him how far away he needed to be before he wouldn't be heard anymore. And then they come over, and the first thing he says right in front of the camera is to Chris, how long have you worked for the government? So we've had some people get real paranoid, go 0 to 100.
Well, yeah, that's kind of an issue, isn't it? Isn't it? It's kind of an issue when a park, I mean, these aren't cops. These are federal park police guys. They're not cops. And even if they were cops, how would they know the guy works for the government unless somebody told them? Told them to let them do what they're going to do, or told them to do whatever and said it's, they're employed by us, so leave them alone or do whatever. Now, I watched the little stream part where, they were kind of harassing them. And it's like, this is what the park police are going to do. If you're causing a disturbance and any Karen out there, any boomer wants to complain about it, the police are going to go over there and they just see a scruffy kid and they're going to harass him. It's just what happens. Now, he got a ticket or something like that, and he went immediately back to the park to continue talking. Now, if this was anybody else, or maybe it was the live stream, but if it was anybody else and they weren't getting recorded, you wouldn't be allowed back in the park. They'd just throw you in jail. They're not going to allow you back in. They allowed him back in. And apparently on the stream, the police asked his traveling companion how long he's worked for the government. So that's a pretty big deal, because his traveling companion has been driving with him for the last 3 months. Apparently doesn't need a job, doesn't need anything, but they know he works for the government. And we can listen to this cockamamie BS story about, what's going on with his friend, about how they might think he works for the government. But just think of this, guys. What cop knows where people work when they arrest them instantaneously? Right? Does anybody know where anybody works? When you get a ticket or you get thrown in jail, they ask you if you have a job. They have no idea. But some cop, or actually a park policeman, is going to know that somebody received a government check. Does that sound logical? No. It doesn't sound logical. And you combine that with the whole thing, with the Nathan Thompson stuff and all of that, where Witsit, at the end of this, he starts slipping into the same exact line-for-line crap that Nathan Thompson always said. Nobody gives me any money for nothing. I don't make nothing. I lose everything by going out here and talking about flat Earth. I turned down $100,000 a year job so I could go tour and talk flat Earth. Nathan Thompson said the exact same thing. Verbatim. We'll let Witsit continue talking.
100. Chris is an agent. Austin's an agent. This is all set up. This is a CIA tour and all this crazy stuff. I think that they tactically did that. He tactically walked over there and asked Chris that. So
a park policeman has an insider on the stream. A park policeman. Really? Really? Do you think that's the truth? Or do you think when they called him in, someone over there is like, oh yeah, we were expecting this guy. This is who they are. Maybe, in Austin, hey, maybe doesn't know nothing about nothing. I doubt it, though, because he tends to disappear whenever these little transitions take place, Between him and Nathan Thompson, we have a transition, and now we have one here with this Chris person, who is, for a fact, a government agent. If you want to believe, why is the park policeman going to make it up?
I asked Chris, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Why did he ask you that? And Chris was genuinely confused. I have no incentive to lie. I've been with Chris the whole time. He stood toe to toe with me, with cops converging on us for 6 months. He's watched my 6 the entire time.
Okay, so 6 months. This guy's been living the gravy train here for 6 months, and hasn't had, because his friend stands toe to toe with him with the cops. Well, what do they have to fear if they're government agents? And you can get into is like, what would be the possible motivations for the CIA or whoever to do something like this? And it's like, well, to gauge the response. That's pretty flippin' obvious. It's to gauge the response of people and to see how many people are woken up out of the general population and how many aren't. How else would you do it? And it's pretty easy. You give a person a free bus and you pay all of their expenses for as long as you can. The guy's been going for 6 months.
So you guys are tripping, but whatever. So I think they tactically did that. They kind of were reading the chats. They know what the context of the chat is, right? They know that they're really anti-establishment, and they wanted to kind of trigger them, try to shut us down. They were getting really triggered that the chat was giving such good advice on what I could do, what they couldn't do, calling them out. They were being exposed in my chat so hardcore, it was ridiculous. Because flat earthers are awesome, because they're actually woke and intelligent and research things. And so they know the laws, they know what they were breaking, and they're just citing all kinds of things off. Don't sign a ticket, don't do this, don't comply, this is harassment, this is abuse, this is kidnapping, blah, 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 blah. He didn't do this. So they potentially actually told the guy to come say that at first. So Chris was trying to figure out what are they talking about. He's never worked for the government. He doesn't work for the government, so he's trying to figure it out. In the morning, he came. He's like, so I was thinking about it, and the only thing I can think about is that for like a 6-month period, I took care of my mother, and so the government was sending him a check to take care of his mother, right? Like some program, don't remember what it was called, but so like.
Well, that makes total sense. We can forget the entire thing. Nope, Witsit and his friend are not a government agent, because once upon a time, he got disability, Social Security payment from the government to take care of his mother. And the park policeman is going to know that. The park policeman is going to know that.
Chris is taking care of his mom, and they're getting him a check. The only time he's ever been given a check from the government or whatever. So if they ran his name and ran his information, or someone called and told or whatever, they have the information that he technically worked for the government, because the government was giving him a paycheck to go do something, right?
The government wasn't giving him a paycheck. Well, let's just go through all of those scenarios. None of that information is going to be in any database anywhere that any police guy or park guy, whatever, federal personnel can easily attain within, 15 minutes of encountering these two idiots. When you apply for anything from any sort of federal assistance or food stamps or any federal or all that stuff, you want to get the Minnesota Care health insurance. You got to put all the information on there. They don't know what jobs you have. They don't know if you're employed. They don't know any of this stuff. You have to tell them. But yet, this park police guy knew that his buddy was not a federal agent, knew his buddy was a government employee. And the story is, because he got a disability check or because he got paid to take care of his mother or something from the government, that's how they knew. Now, this guy, I think, is in on it. I think Witsit's totally in on it. And he needed a couple of days to figure out what their story is going to be or what, but maybe he's just an idiot when it comes to people he knows personally. Because nobody who is a conspiracy theorist who takes nothing as truth and fact, unless they can demonstrably prove it, is going to listen to this story and say that it holds up for anything. What possible reason would a park policeman ask how long you've worked for the government? Is that guy, is the park policeman, is he CIA? Who's got some big grand scheme to make Austin look bad? Is that it? Is that it? Or is he just a low-level guy who's a 9-to-5er who goes there and watches the park and, kicks out drunk people at the park and kicks out rabble-rousers like Witsit from the park? And he was told by his superiors, oh, this is who they are and this is what they're doing and whatever.
To take care of his mother, some program that the government had. So there you go. That's what it is. Everyone's going 0 to 100. And of course, I decided to take a break completely non-related to that. If anyone that's actually followed the stream or watched the stream, they know I genuinely don't hide anything. I'm very transparent. I don't care what other people think. I literally tell you guys everything. I'm very transparent about everything that goes.
According to him, he's very transparent, right? According to him. Anyways, the whole then taking a break for a week. I mean, I don't see that that's necessarily a thing, but he's the one who brought it up. Like, okay, everybody is accusing you of being a government agent and you disappear for a week. And now you come back and say that your Chris friend got a check from the government for taking care of his mom, and that's why he's called a government employee. Now, I've been on food stamps before in my life. Does that mean I'm a government employee? Does that mean that a cop, if they pulled me over or they had a problem with me, they'd look up and in their computer it says that I work for the government because I had food stamps? None of that information is going to show up in the cop's little computer. None of it. My employment history is not going to show up. Nothing shows up at all except my criminal history and if I have any warrants.
Goes on. It really triggers
or if you're a very important person that police cannot touch or cannot mess with, that will show up in the computer system too.
The gamma males that stalk my stream because they can't relate to it or whatever, and so they're really obsessed with it. But I have nothing to hide, and if you don't know that, honestly, this isn't the place for you. If you don't know that, you might as well go ahead and leave because this stream is really going to trigger you.
Yeah,
to be honest. But
it's the Witsit Cult, and if you don't believe me, you're just a gamma troll. And it's like, look, man, I called this months ago when old Witsit wants to do the Hebrew rootin' thing and work salvation thing and get everybody all messed up in the head when it comes to Christianity and Bible doctrine. I called this stuff months ago. Months. And here we are now in August, and federal park police guys are asking Witsit and his buddy how long they worked for the government. Who's got more credibility at this point? Now, I enjoy listening to this guy talk flat earth, in especially in like Minnesota and stuff like that. If I would have known he was coming, I probably would have gone down there to say hi. He probably wouldn't have liked that very much. Probably why I didn't tell anybody he's coming. But there's a lot of crap here that does not add up. There's a lot of these guys in the flat earth world. I haven't listened to a lot of them in a while because it's like some of these guys, they do like 6-hour podcasts a couple of times a week, and it's like that's all you got. It's the same old info over and over. You've got two guys out there who are working really hard that do a really great job in flat earth. Okay, Dave Weiss and the guy who runs a channel that I can't think of off the top of my head. But they're constantly doing things, building apps and out there doing interviews and all this stuff. And Austin, he's out there, supposedly doing these tours and things like this. But what is the real deal here when you have people saying, police people saying, how long have you worked for the government? Is that really what he is doing or what? And then you have that Hebrew roots. That's my big problem is always going to be, hey man, you mess with the deity of Christ. This is the wrong place to be. Messing all these flat earthers' heads up with your nonsense. No, I'm going to go after that, right? And I just happened to mention how suspicious it was that Nathan Thompson took off and Witsit picked up the baton, and they never seemed to ever have to worry about money or anything. Witsit at Cash App 949 or whatever he is, all the ways to donate. Fine, that's his good thing. You don't mess with the Bible though. That's my problem. Until now, where I get to say, hey, look who's right. Max is right.
Yeah, I have nothing to hide, and you should know that. Most of my people don't know that. And so I've been getting spammed and stalked and hit up with comments and DMs and emails about how, like, oh, you're busted, oh, blah, blah, blah. So you took a week off because you got busted, that you work for the government and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, bro, I work for the government. The same guy that stands up to cops in every major city willing to be arrested, even in federal
You're
national
on the same
parks,
team.
and never, ever complies to any totalitarian measurements ever and exposes every aspect of the government and who runs the government for really basically no monetary incentive and only detriments to monetary incentive. You really thought this one out. The government was like, you know what? Let's stop this flat earth from being able to spread the truth. What we'll do is we'll give him an RV that gives him the ability to do activism more efficiently than he's ever been able to do and travel the entire United States and pick where they go, when they go on a whim's notice, like, oh, we're going to go here, let's go here. So the government wanted to aid in my ability to travel the United States, right, during the most crucial time, totalitarian takeover, to spread the truth on a microphone in major cities. That's what the government was doing. So there you go. I addressed it. I'm not going to say the names of the gammas because that's what they want. They're losers. Typically, they're not even flat earthers. They never donated to the channel or to the activism or to the tour.
Oh, no, because they never donated. They're not my friend. They never donated. Now, look, there's a lot of reasons that the government would pay for this. Number one, if there's a lot of people out there who are really frustrated, they get released through watching Witsit out there talking to people, because Witsit's out there doing it for them. As long as the people have a focal point where they can say, well, I gave $5 to Witsit, so I don't have to do anything. I can sit here and watch Netflix and collect my unemployment checks. That's what the government wants. All right? That's what they want. So that's his purpose. Whether or not he works for the government or not, I don't know. But his Chris buddy does. And how all that goes together, I think my initial suspicions are right. There is a lot of reasons you would fund a trip, if not only to gauge the people's response and reaction to how many people actually know the truth about it, but also to make them look dumb.
Loyal subscribers. They're not even real people half the time, probably. So who cares? All the people that really know me, watch me, keep up with the content, have my back, been watching the tour, know I've spilled like my guts for the freaking flat earth. I've spilled my guts for the flat earth, bro. Turned down a 6-figure job, travel the United States for 6 months, over 6 months, constantly doing like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of activism, right? So I don't really care what people think. Doesn't mean anything. Almost probably 60% of our activism isn't even streamed because it can't be. We're constantly waking people up. And so I'm much more rocking with the people that know what's up and have spiritual discernment, wisdom, and guidance.
Right. You're a cult. You're a little cult that believes in the Hebrew roots and all that stuff. Good for you and your cult, man. This whole deal this is just what you tell us. Nobody can know actually what's going on with all of their stuff. Right? But the old live streaming bites you in the butt when a cop asks you how long you've worked for the government. And you can make up whatever kind of cockamamie story that you want to about that. Those park police have no idea who you are and what you're doing. And all they know is you're making a ruckus and you're upsetting the boomers. Right? You're upsetting the boomers who want to believe that, they rocket shipped their way to the moon. And that's it. You're upsetting them. So they're there to go take care of you and hand you a ticket. And they called you into the office or called you into whoever on the radio. And whoever came back on the radio and said, it's all right, they work for the government. You didn't get arrested. You supposedly got a ticket. No one ever saw the ticket that you got. And you went right back up to go protesting. Now, if it was me doing what you're doing, I would not be allowed back into the park. I probably would be sitting in jail because they can hold you for 72 hours and not charge you with anything. Why would they not take advantage of that? It doesn't make any sense. So, anyways, what sounds more logical to you guys? What sounds more rational? Personally, I'm going to roll with the fact that the odds in a percentage system are about 75% that old Max was right 4 or 5 months ago when he called it originally. And maybe about a 5% chance about his stupid story about, oh, my friend got a check from the government, so he's employed by them. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's the case at all. Or it's a big, huge cabal conspiracy where there's like a dozen CIA people. The cops weren't even real cops. They were Jesuit infiltrators that have been shadowing him every single place that he goes and all of this. I mean, whatever you want to believe in that. I mean, people think that the government is actually like all powerful, all seeing eye, guys, and it's not. It's not. What is the most likely thing? That they're on a government tour of the U.S. trying to gauge the people's response to the information that they are putting out there. All expenses paid trip. And especially the last thing he said, where he said, I turned down a 6-figure income to go tour and do activism. Nathan Thompson said the same thing verbatim. It's a script. That's all I have with that. I got to get up early. Yeah, beware of this stuff. Watch it for entertainment, but don't go too deep down the old rabbit hole with these guys, because something ain't kosher with these Hebrew rooters. With that, we're out of here.